FM News Talk 97.1. On demand audio. Common Sense Radio.
Now you've got me under your spell. I've got to take a moment and collect myself, making my brain go warm and fuzzy, thinking about the days when I called you on a
8:38. How's everybody doing? Relaxing, are you? I thought I'd help you with a little bit of relaxing music for you because everybody's so tense. And I don't blame you. Your phone calls are welcome, by the way. Hang on the line because I want to make sure we get to our friend Chris Wallace, who is in D.C. And yes, everybody, he's got a guest booked, and I'm sure it's going to be reflective of all the tumult, as Mitt Romney would call it, in D.C. What's going on, my friend?
Well, that is very laid-back, kind of mellow music. I must say, it certainly calmed me down a little.
That's good. Well, let's be calm together and focus on the fiscal cliff, shall we?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Everybody says in terms of sensible outcomes, it would be absolutely crazy to go over the cliff, but I think there's a possibility they will. I mean, you know, logic says somehow at the last minute, like any negotiation, we'll get right up to the last breath of the last stroke of midnight on December 31st, and Boehner and Obama will come out and announce a deal maybe on Dick Clark's Rocking New Year's Eve or something like that. But, you know, sometimes people do crazy things, so we'll have to wait and see. And anyway, it's good for business. It gives us something to talk about in December, which is usually, particularly after an election, a slow time.
Yeah, and, you know, it's weird that – and people are wondering, a lot of Americans wonder, how do we get to these emergency situations all the time? And under the pretense of emergencies, we got bailouts and TARP and all this kind of thing. And so people are very suspicious of this this warning that, well, this is an absolute emergency. We got to do something now. And how do we get to this point?
Well, we got to this point because back in August of 2011, as part of the deal to raise the debt limit, they set up the super committee and they gave them a deadline, which was a year ago, and they didn't meet their deadline. I mean, you know, there were sort of a series of triggers, and they said, well, you know, if this doesn't happen, then that happens. And, you know, we're at the last trigger. This isn't manufactured. The tax increases and spending cuts will go into effect at the end of the year, and you know, for the average person, it'll mean about $2,500 in their tax increase, tax hike, and for wealthier people, a lot more than that, and a lot of programs that people depend on will be cut. The Defense Department will suffer major cuts, and the whole point of the fiscal cliff, of course, was this is so ridiculous, this is so untenable that it'll never happen. But we got to create some sort of fail-safe out there to say, well, you certainly don't want this to happen, so you'll come to a deal. And here we are, about less than 5 weeks away, and we haven't come to the deal yet after a year and a half.
So who are you going to have on the air with you?
Well, we're going to have Chuck Schumer, who's the number 3 Democrat in the Senate, and Tom Coburn of Oklahoma, who is known as Dr. No, big opponent of spending. And here's the interesting development this week. I think the most interesting development is Obama keeps talking about taxes. Frankly, Republicans keep talking about taxes. But the Republicans now say, you know, look, you said you want a balanced approach. That's spending cuts and tax increases. And everybody's talking about the tax increases. What about the spending cuts? Where are they? Where are the cuts in discretionary spending? Where's the reform of entitlements? And now you get some people in the White House and some top Democrats saying, well, no, all we need for the down payment that would avert the fiscal cliff is just the tax hike,
right,
and we can worry about that other stuff. And that, of course, has always been the Republican fear, that you get the tax increases now and the promise of spending cuts that never happen. Nobody is better to talk about what could be cut out of entitlements and discretionary spending than Tom Coburn, so they'll go at it on Sunday, and hopefully, we can get the Fox News Sunday compromise.
Yeah, that'll be a really great show, and I know that Schumer will, as he has been lately, kind of blaming everything on Grover Norquist, but I'm not quite sure he's going to get away with that with Coburn right there, and you.
Well, that's right. I mean, look, one can argue that we do need more revenue, and of course, the Republicans have their plan, which is not to raise rates but to close loopholes. And do some tax reform. But I don't think anybody sensible would say that, the entire problem with our economy is that we tax too little.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly enough, the president talked about a balance. Balance means there's some equal weight on both sides. And all he's talking about are the taxes, and now suddenly everybody's forgetting about, on the Democratic side, about spending.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting, and we have, Krauthammer said yesterday, and he pointed this out as you were pointing out now, and you're not doing it as critically, obviously, you're doing it from a reporter standpoint, but Krauthammer did it from a punditry standpoint and said that Obama never intended to attack entitlements or anything like that, and he has no intention of negotiating that.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, he did back a year and a half ago, as part of those debt deals, put some stuff on the table. Now he hasn't returned to it, but he did talk about raising the retirement age of Medicare, and he did talk about slowing the cost of living adjustments in Social Security. I mean, there is a deal to be made here, and like any good deal, nobody walks away satisfied.
Right.
And we do have a divided government. There's no reason that any side should win everything. The revenues are going to have to be raised one way or the other, and spending needs to be cut one way or the other, and entitlements need to be reformed, which means cuts. Everybody needs to bite the bullet and do it, and that's what they're going to end up with eventually. And the only question is, how much pain are they going to cause getting there? All
right. Well, we'll be watching. This should be a good show. I mean, I'm telling you, when those two guys get together, I remember one time you had Schumer on, and who was it? Do you remember this? Because you did a great job.
Let me put it this way, Jamie. I can't remember what I had for breakfast. I'm of that age now.
Well,
I can't tell you how many times if you asked me on a Wednesday, who was on the show last Sunday, I'm like, who the heck was on the show?
No, I'm with you. Well, what I mean is that these guys, you get two of these guys on, and you had Schumer on and a Republican counterpart. And you had to kind of get in there and just corral these guys because they were going hog wild in terms of
yeah. No, I think it'll be interesting. I think they're two leading spokesmen for their two sides, and let's see if we can work out something.
Yeah. All right. Well, sounds good, and we'll be stealing from you for our Monday show. So
imitation is the sincerest form of radio.
All right, my friend. Good talking to you.
Goodbye.
All right. All right.
I used to ride.
Allman in the morning. Common Sense Radio.
All right, your phone calls are welcome now. Let's wrap it up. 969-9797, 866-455-9797. If you got tired of holding and hung up, call on back. I want to hear from you.